has the best blocks in all of NBA's time? Well, that is a question that most really don't ask until you stack one up against another. Because blocks are something that many NBA players want to do, but they don't always get the chance to do it because of timing, positioning, and so on. But then, when you put on a spectacle with that block, it becomes something that is remembered forever. Throughout the decades, players big and small have made their best blocks, and now we're going to do our best to point out some of the best ever. Will your favorite block make the list? Number 10, Giannis Antetokounmpo on DeAndre Ayton, 2021. So let's start off with one from last year to show that these aren't all old school blocks, okay? With the Bucks up 101-99 and less than 1 minute 17 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter, Devin Booker ran a dribble handoff action with his big man Ayton, drove the ball towards the basket, and tried to lob it up for the uber-athletic center, a play that was exceedingly difficult to defend for every team Phoenix had faced in the playoffs. Before Booker and Ayton could complete their own Shaq and Kobe playoff alley-oop, however, Antetokounmpo soared in legitimately out of nowhere to reject the shot when it looked like Ayton was going to be able to slam the ball through the hoop. Stakes at hand, this block likely comes second to LeBron's and Iguodala historically, as we could one day look back and see it as a championship-deciding rejection from the aptly called Greek Freak. Few players in the history of the league possess or possessed the wherewithal that Antetokounmpo showed on the play or the freakish length, explosiveness, and athleticism to make that block from where he was. Number 9, LeBron James on Andre Iguodala, 2016. In a career full of legacy-defining moments powerful enough to give him a strong claim to be considered the NBA's GOAT, James's block on Iguodala in Game 7 of the 2016 Finals is near the top of the list of best James moments, if not flat out number 1. Not only did it come with some of the highest stakes possible, late in a tied Game 7 with fewer than 2 minutes remaining against the reigning Finals MVP, but the physics behind it were likewise jaw-dropping. For James to leap that high in the air and get up to the ball quickly enough to block it before it touched the backboard on a play that he was trailing far from behind for, the majority of it is still astonishing to see, even on replay all of these years later. And who knows, if Iguodala had been able to get that layup to drop, do the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by James, still complete that historic comeback, giving James the hugely important third championship of his career? And does Kevin Durant still sign with the Golden State Warriors the following offseason if they win the title in 2016? A legitimate history-changing block by James and almost unquestionably the greatest rejection in league history. Number 8, LeBron James on Thiago Splitter, 2013. Now, unsurprisingly, a player with career as long and great as James's was going to show up on this list more than once. And though his block on Thiago Splitter didn't have quite the stakes at hand as his 2016 swat on Iguodala, it was still extremely impressive in its own right, just judging by first the fact that he was blocking a center with full steam behind him, second the sound the ball made when James's hand met it, and third that it came in a finals game in which his team at the time, the Miami Heat, were trailing in the series. It may not have been a Game 7, but a Game 2 at home, starting a 2-0 hole in the face before having to hit the road for the next 3 games are still pretty enormous stakes, and James came up huge at that moment for Miami with his block. For almost any other player, this is the best rejection and perhaps play of their career. For James, however, it's not even the best block that he's had in the finals. Number 7, Tayshaun Prince on Reggie Miller, 2004. The 2003-2004 playoffs were something of a coming out party for Tayshaun Prince, a player who would go on to make 4 all-defense teams, win a championship with the Detroit Pistons, and even win a gold medal with one of the greatest Olympic basketball teams ever, the 2008 Redeem Team. And the play that people remember most from that coming out party came late in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals, with the Pistons up 69-67 over the Indiana Pacers and now Hall of Famer Reggie Miller, and just under 30 seconds remaining. On the preceding play, Detroit ran a usual play that featured 3 of their stars, Chauncey Billups, Richard Hamilton, and Rasheed Wallace, culminating with Wallace getting a decent look at the rim. In this instance, though, Wallace was met at the summit by another great shot blocker historically, Jermaine O'Neal, who packed his shot leading to Billups getting the ball back and turning it over. With 20 seconds left and a clean lane, it looked like Miller was going to tie the game, and perhaps help the Pacers sneak out of the game with a win and a 2-0 series lead. Instead, Prince soared in for the second greatest playoff chase-down block of all time, timing his swat perfectly, packing the ball against the rim before it flew up and eventually came down in the hands of Hamilton. The Pistons would go on to win the NBA Finals, proving how blocks can change everything once again. Number 6. Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen on Charles Smith, 1993. And what was one of the greatest defensive sequences in NBA playoff history, the dynastic 90 Chicago Bulls put Charles Smith in an absolute box late in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals, blocking his point-blank opportunities 3 times and stripping him a couple of other times just for good measure. The first block came from Horace Grant, who was immediately followed by Michael Jordan stripping Smith down low and who somehow recovered the ball only to get blocked from behind by Scottie Pippen not once but twice before eventually losing the ball to Grant. What some may not remember about that sequence was that the Knicks were trailing by 1 measly point at the time. The clock had fewer than 15 seconds remaining on it, and had Smith been able to score and had New York gotten just one more stop, they would have taken a 3-2 lead in series, giving them 2 more opportunities to stop the Bulls dead to rights at 2 championships. Number 5. Roy Hibbert on Carmelo Anthony, 2013. The Knicks, led by Carmelo Anthony, won 54 games in 2013 and had a good amount of momentum heading into the playoffs, where many expected them to reach the Eastern Conference Finals for a showdown against the rival Miami Heat. Hibbert and the Pacers would have other plans, however, and on the heels of that wrist-bending block by the 7-footer, would go on to win that night. Game 6 of the Eastern Conference semis by 7 points, thus eliminating the Knicks in 6 games and ending that fun early 2010s run from Anthony and New York. The Knicks wouldn't make the playoffs again until 2021, a 7-year stretch of futility. Number 4. Nate Robinson on Yao Ming, 2006. For a player generously listed at 5'9" and Nate Robinson to cleanly block a 7'6", 300-plus pound behemoth like Yao Ming is something that fans of the sport will never forget. And Robinson didn't block the shot from behind either, instead meeting Ming face to face at the rim and getting to the ball before the Hall of Famer could smash it through the net. That is just how explosive and tough the former NBA guard was at his athletic prime, that he was able to pull off one of the best blocks the association has ever seen. Number 3. Blake Griffin on Deron Williams, 2012. Again, limited stakes at hand here as this came in a November contest between the Los Angeles Clippers and Brooklyn Nets back in 2012. But this one makes the list for just how filthy it was. Not only was Griffin's rejection on Williams gravity-defying, Griffin was able to palm the ball and control it on the way down was absolutely insane, making it one of the most forgotten about but underrated packs in NBA history. Number 2. Wilt Chamberlain on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is famous for talking about how unblockable his skyhook was, and for the most part, he was right. The man didn't end up the NBA's all-time leading scorer by accident after all. But that doesn't mean that it was never blocked. Another all-time great and Abdul-Jabbar's biggest adversary early on in his career, Wilt Chamberlain, was able to do just that, twice in a row on the same play in fact, pulling that immaculate feat off when he was already in his mid-30s no less. Those blocks make the list not just based on how difficult the skyhook was to contest, let alone swat away, let alone twice in one play, but also because of the names featured, Abdul-Jabbar and Chamberlain, 2 of the greatest the sport have ever witnessed. Number 1. Ben Wallace on Shaquille O'Neal, 2006. Another block that featured 2 all-time great big men, Ben Wallace's 2006 swat on Shaquille O'Neal had relatively big stakes on the line, as it came in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals that year, with the Pistons trailing Miami 3-1. Early in the third quarter, with Detroit clinging to a 4-point lead, O'Neal caught the ball down low in his usual dominant positioning, discarding Rasheed Wallace before going up for what he thought would be an easy dunk. That thought would prove incorrectly, as Wallace came from out of nowhere to pin the ball to O'Neal's hands, blocking him so hard and for such a long time that the refs had no choice but to whistle a jump ball. The Pistons would go on to win that night and force a Game 6, but would come up short on the road in Miami in the following contest to end their campaign. while the Heat would win the championship that year, O'Neal's first and only title away from the Lakers. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the best blocks in NBA history? Do you remember seeing these dunks live or on replay? Do you think that some of these really are the best that the NBA has ever seen? Who do you think has the potential right now to make a dunk that could get on this list? Let us know in the comments below, and we will see you next time on the channel.